You are not tired because life is hard. You are tired because you are trying to manage everything. You are trying to manage how people respond to you, how fast success arrives, how your future unfolds, and how you are perceived. Even on quiet days, your mind is busy calculating, predicting, adjusting, replaying conversations, and preparing for problems that have not even happened. That invisible mental effort feels heavier than physical work. It is not the tasks that exhaust you. It is the constant inner pressure to make sure nothing goes wrong. The more you try to control timing, outcomes, and other people, the more anxious you become. Control feels responsible, but it is fragile. You can control your effort, but you cannot control how others respond. You can prepare carefully, but you cannot command results. So when you grip tighter, everything begins to feel unstable. Effort slowly turns into pressure, pressure turns into tension, and tension turns into exhaustion. Not because life is crushing you, but because you are bracing against it. The real weight you feel is not from action itself. It is from resistance behind the action. What if the problem is not life, but your inner resistance to how life unfolds? What if you are not exhausted from doing too much, but from fighting what already is? In this video, you will understand why forcing blocks clarity, why control increases anxiety, and why chasing makes you feel constantly behind. More importantly, you will learn how to move forward without fighting yourself, not by giving up, and not by becoming passive, but by changing your inner posture toward effort. When you stop tightening against life, something surprising happens. Things do not become perfect. They become lighter. Lesson 1. Tension is the real exhaustion. It's not action that drains you, it's internal resistance. Most people believe they are exhausted because they are doing too much. But look closer. There are days when you work hard and still feel clear. And there are days when you do very little, yet feel completely depleted. The difference is not the workload. The difference is tension. Forcing does not begin in your schedule. It begins in your body. A tight jaw, shallow breathing, shoulders slightly raised, a racing mind that never truly pauses. Before the world feels heavy, your nervous system is already bracing. Stress is rarely just about work. It is about identity pressure, the quiet belief that you must succeed, must impress, must stay ahead, must not fall behind. That pressure creates resistance inside you. And when action comes from fear, fear of being ordinary, fear of losing control, fear of not being enough, it feels heavy even when it succeeds. You can achieve the goal and still feel tense. You can win and still feel exhausted, because the body never felt safe during the process. Modern psychology explains this clearly. When your nervous system is in a constant fight or flight state, everything feels urgent. Your mind narrows, your breathing shortens, your perception becomes threat-focused. In this state, even simple decisions feel overwhelming. It is not the task that overwhelms you, it is the tension underneath it. When your body is tight, your thoughts become tight. When your body softens, clarity expands. So the practice is simple, but powerful. Before making decisions, regulate the body first. Slow the breath, unclench the jaw, drop the shoulders, let the nervous system settle. Then act. You will notice something subtle but profound. The same effort feels lighter, the same challenge feels clearer. Because exhaustion was never just about doing, it was about resisting while doing. When tension dissolves, energy returns, even before circumstances change. Lesson 2. Stop turning effort into self-worth. One of the quietest traps you can fall into is confusing productivity with value. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your worth increases when your output increases. When you achieve more, you feel more secure. When you slow down, even slightly, guilt creeps in. This is not ambition. This is identity attachment. When striving becomes who you are, rest begins to feel unsafe. You are no longer just doing the work. You are trying to prove something through it. And this is where exhaustion deepens. Because if your value depends on achievement, you can never truly relax. Even during rest, your mind is calculating the next move. You do not know who you are without progress, without a goal, without something to chase. The silence feels uncomfortable because it removes the scoreboard. And without the scoreboard, you are left with a question that feels unsettling. Who am I if I am not producing? Modern culture makes this worse. Hustle culture praises overwork and labels burnout as dedication. It glorifies constant motion and treats stillness like laziness. But constant striving does not create fulfillment. It creates anxiety. When your nervous system is always chasing the next milestone, peace becomes conditional. You tell yourself you will rest after the next success, but the next success never feels like enough, because the issue is not the goal. The issue is tying your identity to reaching it. Here is the deeper shift: separate doing from being. Effort is something you engage in. It is not who you are. Achievement can express your abilities, but it does not define your worth. You are allowed to exist without earning it. You are allowed to rest without falling behind. You are allowed to pause without losing value. When you stop building your identity around effort, something softens. Work becomes cleaner. Rest becomes honest. And your worth no longer rises and falls with performance. You still act. You still grow. But you no longer need exhaustion to prove that you matter. Lesson 3. Control is fear in disguise. Most control patterns are not strength. They are anxiety patterns. They look responsible on the surface, but underneath them is fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being rejected. Fear of uncertainty. Control feels intelligent, strategic, even mature. But if you look honestly, much of it is simply the mind trying to protect itself from discomfort. Notice how often you try to control conversations. You rehearse what you will say before you say it. You analyze someone's tone for hidden meaning. You adjust your personality slightly depending on who is in front of you. You want to manage how you are perceived. Then after the conversation ends, you replay it in your mind. You search for mistakes. You imagine better responses. You try to rewrite what already happened. This is not clarity. This is the illusion of control. You do the same with outcomes. You predict every possible scenario before taking action. You plan for reactions that may never come. You mentally prepare for failure long before it exists. The mind believes that if it can predict enough, it can prevent pain. But prediction is not protection. It is prolonged tension. And that tension keeps your nervous system in a constant state of alertness. Control gives the illusion of safety because it feels active. Doing something feels better than sitting in uncertainty. But the cost is heavy. When you grip too tightly, you lose flexibility. You lose presence. You stop responding to reality and start reacting to imagined futures. Anxiety grows not because life is chaotic, but because you are trying to dominate what cannot be dominated. The shift is subtle but powerful. Replace control with clarity. Clarity means you focus on what is actually yours to manage. Your effort, your words, your integrity, your preparation. And then you release what was never yours. The outcome, the timing, other people's reactions. Acting fully does not mean clinging fully. You can show up completely without demanding a specific result. When you act from clarity, your body relaxes. You make decisions based on present information, not imagined disaster. You stop replaying what cannot be changed, and something surprising happens. Your responses become sharper, not because you forced them, but because you were no longer divided by fear. Lesson 4. Calm is strategic power. Most people misunderstand calm. They think it means softness, passivity, or lack of ambition. In a culture that praises urgency and speed, calm can look like weakness. But calm is not weakness. It is leverage. It is the ability to stay steady while others react. And that steadiness gives you an advantage most people do not even realize exists. An anxious mind misreads reality. When you are tense, your perception narrows. You see threats where there are none. You assume rejection before it happens. You interpret silence as disapproval. Anxiety fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. In that state, your decisions are not strategic. They are defensive. You speak too quickly. You over-explain. You commit too early. You pull back too soon. All because your nervous system is trying to escape discomfort. But when your body is regulated, something changes. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders soften. Your mind becomes less reactive and more observant. And from that space, you begin to see options that were invisible before. Calm widens perception. You notice tone instead of assuming intent. You wait instead of interrupting. You respond instead of reacting. This is not hesitation. It is precision. Calm people often make fewer moves, but their moves are stronger. They do not waste energy trying to control every detail. They choose their words carefully. They act when action is needed, and they stay still when stillness is wiser. Because they are not fighting internal chaos, they can focus fully on the situation in front of them. Their power does not come from intensity. It comes from clarity. Peace improves decisions before results ever change. Most people believe they will feel calm after circumstances improve, but it works the other way around. When you stabilize internally first, your decisions become cleaner. You stop chasing approval. You stop arguing unnecessarily. You stop forcing outcomes. And over time, those steady decisions reshape your external results. Calm is not about withdrawing from life. It is about entering it without panic. It is the ability to sit in discomfort without rushing to escape it. It is the discipline of not letting emotion dictate direction. And in a world driven by reaction, that kind of stability becomes rare. When you are calm, you are not slower, you are sharper, you are not passive, you are deliberate. And deliberate action, grounded in peace, carries far more power than anxious intensity ever could. Lesson 5. Stop chasing what already responds to alignment. Chasing feels productive. It feels ambitious. It feels like you are taking control of your future. But if you look closely, chasing often signals something deeper, a belief that what you want is outside of you and must be pursued before it disappears. That belief creates urgency, and urgency, when driven by fear, turns into desperation. Desperation is subtle. It shows up in the way you overtext someone who hasn't replied. It shows up when you say yes to opportunities that do not respect your time. It shows up when you overwork to prove your value at your job. You think you are being proactive, but internally you are communicating something else. I might lose this if I don't force it. And people feel that energy. Employers feel it in interviews. Partners feel it in conversations. Friends feel it in your tone. When you are chasing validation, attention, or approval, your presence tightens. You lean forward too much. You try too hard to impress. And ironically, the very thing you want begins to move away. Not because you are unworthy, but because desperation creates imbalance. When you move from wholeness instead of lack, the dynamic changes. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means internal stability. It means you are not depending on one opportunity, one person, or one outcome to define your worth. You show up prepared, clear, and steady. You express interest without attachment. You pursue goals without tying them to your identity. That steadiness attracts cooperation because it signals confidence. In relationships, this means you do not beg for attention or chase mixed signals. You communicate clearly and then observe. If someone aligns with you, they respond with consistency. If they do not, you do not collapse. In your career, it means you develop skills, do your work well, and allow your value to speak. You network without desperation. You apply for roles without assuming rejection defines you. In social settings, it means you do not perform for respect. You carry yourself with quiet assurance and let your character build credibility over time. You do not need to chase what genuinely aligns with you. Alignment responds to clarity, not pressure. If something requires you to shrink, overextend, or constantly prove yourself, it may not be alignment, it may be fear disguised as opportunity. So instead of chasing externally, focus on becoming internally stable. Regulate your emotions. Strengthen your skills. Clarify your values. When you are grounded, you make cleaner decisions. You walk away from what drains you. You invest in what strengthens you. And slowly, you notice something powerful. Opportunities begin to feel mutual instead of pursued. You still take action. You still move forward. But you are no longer running from insecurity. You are moving from stability. And stability creates magnetism. When you stop chasing from fear, what truly belongs in your life begins to meet you halfway. Lesson 6. Uncertainty is not the enemy. Most of your stress does not come from uncertainty itself. It comes from your demand for immediate clarity. You want to know where the relationship is going. You want to know if the decision will work out. You want to know whether the risk will pay off. And when answers do not arrive quickly, your mind treats the absence of certainty as a threat. So you push for conclusions. You replay conversations looking for hidden signals. You ask multiple people for advice, hoping someone will give you a definitive answer. You try to think your way into clarity. But demanding answers too aggressively often blocks the very intuition you are trying to access. When you insist on certainty, your mind narrows. It becomes focused on eliminating discomfort rather than seeing clearly. That narrowing effect makes you cling to the first explanation that feels safe. You rush decisions, you overcommit, or you freeze entirely because you are afraid of choosing wrong. The pressure to figure it out now creates noise, and intuition does not function well in noise. Overthinking is usually not intelligence. It is fear of not knowing. It is the belief that if you analyze enough angles, you can eliminate risk. But life does not offer complete data. There will always be variables outside your control. When you keep turning the same thought over and over, you are not gaining insight. You are trying to escape uncertainty. Wisdom appears in quiet observation. That does not mean doing nothing forever. It means allowing information to accumulate without forcing interpretation too soon. If you are unsure about a job offer, instead of obsessively listing pros and cons at midnight, give yourself space. Sleep. Notice how your body feels in the morning. If you are confused about someone's intentions, stop interrogating every message. Observe patterns over time. Consistency reveals more than speculation ever will. Delay reaction and increase perception. This is practical discipline. When you feel the urge to respond immediately to an email that frustrates you, wait. When you want to send a message out of insecurity, pause. When you feel pressure to decide instantly, ask yourself if that urgency is real or self-created. Often, a short delay changes your entire perspective. Uncertainty is uncomfortable because it exposes your lack of control, but it is not the enemy. It is space. and space allows reality to reveal itself more fully. When you stop demanding clarity, clarity often arrives on its own, not as a dramatic realization, but as a quiet knowing. You do not need all the answers right now. You need enough information to take the next honest step. The rest becomes visible as you move. When you treat uncertainty as part of the process, instead of a problem to eliminate, your decisions become calmer, cleaner, and more grounded in reality rather than fear. Lesson 7. Trust is mature strength. Trust is often misunderstood. Many people hear the word and think it means passivity, laziness, or blind optimism. They assume that if you trust, you stop trying. If you trust, you become careless. But real trust is not passive at all. It is emotional stability. It is the ability to act fully and then release the constant need to control what happens next. Most people know how to take action. They send the application. They have the difficult conversation. They invest the time. They show up and do the work. But what they struggle with is what happens afterward. After the action is complete, the mind keeps working. It rehearses possible outcomes. It predicts rejection. It imagines success and then worries about losing it. Even when nothing is happening externally, internally there is constant monitoring. You check your phone repeatedly after sending an important message. You replay the meeting in your head after it ends. You analyze someone's tone for hidden meaning. You try to read the future before it arrives. This mental rehearsal creates friction. It keeps your nervous system slightly tense, slightly braced, slightly alert. You may look calm on the outside, but inside, you are still fighting the unfolding of events. Trust interrupts this pattern. Trust says, I have done what I can. Now I will allow the rest to unfold. It does not deny responsibility. It acknowledges limits. You are responsible for your effort, your honesty, your preparation, and your integrity. You are not responsible for how others respond, how timing works out, or how circumstances evolve beyond your influence. When you stop monitoring every detail of how things unfold, your energy changes. Instead of living in anticipation, you return to presence. Instead of trying to predict every possible scenario, you focus on what is in front of you. This is not denial. It is discipline. It takes strength to stop checking. It takes maturity to sit with uncertainty without reaching for reassurance. You do not need proof before peace. This is one of the most powerful shifts you can make. Most people tell themselves they will relax once they receive confirmation, once the promotion is official, once the relationship is defined, once the plan is guaranteed. But if your peace depends on proof, you will always feel unstable. There will always be another outcome to wait for. Trust allows peace before the result. It allows you to breathe even when the answer has not arrived. It stabilizes your nervous system because you are no longer arguing with reality. You are cooperating with it. And when inner resistance dissolves, something surprising happens. Even challenges feel lighter because you are not doubling them with mental conflict. Life feels heavy when you fight it. When you demand certainty, resist timing, and try to control every outcome, you create friction against what is already moving. That friction drains you, but life feels lighter when you cooperate with it. When you act clearly and then release control, your energy becomes clean. You stop wasting strength on what was never yours to manage. Trust is mature strength because it requires self-regulation. It requires accepting that uncertainty is part of growth. It requires letting go of the illusion that you can engineer every detail of your future. And in that letting go, you do not lose power. You regain it. You become steady. You become less reactive. You become less exhausted. You still act. You still plan. You still care deeply. but you no longer brace against outcomes. You allow them. And when you stop fighting the natural movement of life, you discover something important. You were never meant to carry everything alone. Cooperation feels lighter than control, and trust is what makes that cooperation possible. One day, life will test your patience again. It will delay something you wanted. It will challenge your plans. It will bring uncertainty when you expected clarity. That day is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. But when it comes, it will not meet the same version of you. It will meet someone steadier, someone who no longer clenches at uncertainty, someone who understands that tension only clouds judgment, someone who feels the rise of anxiety in the body and softens instead of spirals, someone who no longer believes that control equals safety. It will meet someone who works hard but does not tie their worth to the result, someone who gives effort fully then lets go cleanly, someone who does not rehearse failure before it happens, someone who does not beg outcomes to behave a certain way. Effort will still be there, but the pressure will not. It will meet someone who pauses before reacting, someone who does not rush to defend, explain, or prove, someone who allows a moment of silence before speaking, someone who sees clearly because they are no longer blinded by urgency. Calm will no longer feel like weakness. It will feel like strength. It will meet someone who moves forward but does not chase, someone who builds skill, develops character, and walks with stability, someone who understands that alignment attracts what force never could, someone who knows that desperation pushes away what patience invites closer, and that version of you will not feel exhausted by life, not because life suddenly became simple, not because challenges disappeared, but because the inner fight ended. The resistance softened, the constant bracing stopped. Life did not become easier, you became aligned, and alignment is lighter than control.